is off, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. It's Friday in Belgium.
no,
It must be Tuesday, right?
no, it's not even Tuesday.
Now he's in a good mood.
Yeah, because we're that much closer to being over.
Wow.
That's
It's still
what
February.
he said.
It's still February.
That's what he said.
Yes. Okay. The Frankster, Frank Radice, welcome from London.
Hey, mate, it's good to be here.
And have you noticed how good his newsletter's getting?
I focused finally.
It's quite good.
Thanks. I focused finally on some one thing as opposed to trying to make it general and all that.
And
Thanks. I appreciate
thanks to the Trumpster for not being relevant anymore.
I don't know about that.
That helped. That helped. But it turned out that it just felt like, all this. If you woke up in Los Angeles and saw something that I posted at 6 o'clock in the morning in the UK, you'd seen all the stories already. There was just nothing I could do about it. So.
I think we heard from Brent Leary in sunny Atlanta.
It actually is sunny here, and we've had heat and electricity and water for forever. Glad I'm not living in Texas right now. Really feel bad for those folks. So.
Yeah, they have crews.
He left.
And then he came back as fast as he could.
Yeah.
They say he went to Cancun in order to have a meeting to figure out whether or not the Mexicans stole the sunlight and the heat from Texas.
Wow.
Thank you.
Did they find that out by reading his wife's texts? Because
Oh my God! No, I thought it was her kids. Well, it was the kids.
Blame the daughters first. Well,
Anyway.
Let me think. What am I supposed to be doing now? Oh,
You're introducing people.
I'm getting used to introduce people like I don't know that. Okay. Welcome to Michael Markman, if in fact he's there.
Awake?
Right there.
Awake? Are you wondering if he's awake?
Awoke?
I'm not sure actually, but he's in the Seattle area.
Okay, excellent. And notice how we're giving the lower third time to sort of shake and quiver. All right. Speaking of lower thirds, in the lower left corner on my screen is Keith Teare. Welcome, Keith.
Nice to be here. I am, by the way, COVID positive. You should all know, so don't come close to me. I tested positive on Wednesday. But apparently I'm now no longer contagious because the first symptoms were February the 3rd.
wow, that's almost that's 2
Fun.
weeks. And you had your first symptoms were February the 3rd, and when did they diagnose you?
I had a temperature for one day, and I've been coughing literally for 2 weeks, and I thought I just had a chest cold, but once I was like 2 weeks through it and went and got a test, and sure enough, I was positive.
Oh my! Have you had any? Have you had the vaccine yet?
March the 2nd, which is still okay. I'm allowed to.
Well, how are you feeling right now?
No, I haven't felt any worse than having it's not even flu level. It's lower than flu level. Like I've been able to work all the way through. I kind of had one day in bed where I really didn't want to get up, but apart from that, I've been fine.
Good for you.
Yeah. Wow.
So for those of you who have never seen a positive COVID person,
Well, if we have to see you as a positive COVID person, I'm glad I'm seeing you like I am right now. So
exactly.
Let's see. Denis Pombriant, welcome.
Hello, Steve. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. I'd like to announce that I'm getting a shot in the arm on Monday.
Nice.
Yeah.
And,
I'm very excited.
and I think we've got everybody covered here.
Yeah. Oh, we're done.
Okay,
Okay, is that it?
you next
Great
week.
show, guys.
you tell me.
Excellent.
No,
Hey, so
seriously.
let me, what's going on? What is this Australia thing all about? Can somebody please explain to me which one of the parties is an asshole?
What are you talking about?
Pardon me.
Facebook versus
Well,
Australia?
Facebook versus
you have
Australia.
to. You don't need to be told. It's Zuckerberg by definition, by default.
And
So-
why is that?
Well, because he's Zuckerberg. No, it's. I'm sorry. I'm being nasty.
Anti-Zuckerbergian is what you're being.
That's what I am. I'm being anti-Zuckerbergian. Yes.
This is a
Can
piece
somebody
of-
illuminate what you're talking about, please?
Well, what we're talking about is that Australia said that Google and Facebook should pay news sources for their news, and Zuckerberg's position is, nah, we don't need to pay for it. They get more out of it than we do.
So, but I thought it was, so if there's a link to a news source on Facebook, there's a, do they pay the link source or do they pay a tax to the government?
Well, and right now they block it. If you click on a link source and you're in Australia, and by the way, it includes Ben Thompson's stratechery.
Stratechery.
Whatever you guys call it. Basically,
Aluminium.
you get a sign from Facebook saying this news is blocked due to the Australian government's requirement that we pay the writer, and so they block it. Whereas Google is paying.
Yeah, but
At
doesn't
least
that,
it's paying Murdoch? It's not necessarily paying everyone. It's kind of interesting. I don't fully understand what Google is exactly doing other than paying Murdoch.
doesn't that ultimately hurt the public who utilize those services, especially now that they're about ready to, from what I understand, go whole hog into the vaccine time in Australia right now? I mean, there's some serious stuff that needs to be, information that needs to be disseminated. Wouldn't that sort of put a stop to some of that? And doesn't that hurt the public? And isn't that a bad thing the government's doing?
I think before you get into who it hurts, and I do agree with you though, the more interesting question is, where does the value lay? Is Facebook getting value from Ben Thompson by being able to show his stuff when, let's say, I post a link to it? Because Facebook isn't posting those links, I am, or people like me. Or are the news organizations getting value by the traffic that they get due to the links being posted? And the debate, it seems as if, everyone really agrees the news organizations are not being ripped off, they're getting value, except the news organizations and the Australian government.
Well, it's not a binary question. It's a question of how much value do the news organizations get, and are they getting fair value? How much value does Facebook get, and are they getting fair value? That's what it's about. I think everyone would agree that both sides are getting value. Question is, are they getting the appropriate amount of value and the appropriate amount of compensation?
I would say it's about power too.
Why is the government inserting itself in a transaction between two private parties?
Yeah.
This seems to be a power play here.
I mean, I don't like Facebook as much as I don't like Ted Cruz, but
Wow, that's a lot.
I know. There was a great joke on cable the other day about when Ted Cruz was younger and was working for the Republican National Committee, and somebody said everybody hates Ted Cruz right away because it's just more efficient. First time.
Yeah, I heard that one. And the other one is if somebody did something to Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate, nobody would do anything. I mean, it was just,
it's like a tree falling in the woods.
Yeah.
They did something to Ted Cruz, nobody would. But here's the thing. I wonder though, from what I heard, that there was automatically a 20% decline in traffic to those news sites that had been blocked. I mean, that's pretty sizable. I don't know how you calculate the value of it. And I also wonder, what if it's an aggregated newsletter, for example, like mine, and it goes to Australia? Are all of the stories inside the aggregated newsletter blocked?
Is that a valid comparison?
I don't know.
How is your?
I mean, you're not Facebook. Your newsletter is in Facebook. Facebook's got a whole business model, a multi-billion-dollar business model based on ripping off other people's content.
Yeah, which is what I do, and I, but my newsletter is also on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and but yeah, I get that whole ripoff thing.
Think of it as peer-to-peer distributed links. That's what I think it is. It's peer-to-peer distributed links. This doesn't apply to Google search. This applies to when you share a link with other people that you post, like we do in Telegram, for example, and then it gets tweeted. So it's peer-to-peer distributed links, which we do in email at great scale. We do in Facebook. We do in Twitter. Any place where we can tell anyone we want to communicate with, hey, check out this link.
That's not really one-to-one or peer-to-peer. It's really one-to-many. I mean, you're making a comparison between peer-to-peer and one-to-many.
No, not really, because
it's a very different business model.
They're the same thing. I email my newsletter to, I think it's 5,000 people now, and there's always at least 30 links in it, and I send it via email. So should my email carrier, when those links are clicked on, should I pay on that? Email carrier pay? The whole idea that links are valuable from the point of view of the clicker or the sender, and the traffic that comes in has zero value to the publication. That is like weird.
I don't agree that it has zero value to the publication.
Keith, does your newsletter a revenue stream for you?
No.
Well, it can be. I have subscribers.
It can. Pay. Oh, his is. Yeah, mine isn't.
Not all of it, but some people pay.
See, this gets to the heart of the idea that I had for regulating social media and things like this. There should be a class of users that pay nothing and have very little responsibility vis-a-vis keeping the internet from getting crashed. But if somebody is communicating with millions or even hundreds of thousands of people, there's a different standard that needs to apply. I think it's standard that says you've got to own what you're doing. You have to have responsibility for it, and part of that responsibility may end up meaning paying for some of the content you use.
Nobody is obliged to post stuff to Facebook. One of the viewers has said that Facebook's not ripping anybody off because no one's obliged to post links to Facebook.
Yeah, but Facebook is benefiting by having valuable content that people may or may not choose to pursue.
Yeah, but they're also, Facebook is saying this is interesting. And they should be charging for it, not paying for it.
So Facebook?
Well, they are charging for it, aren't they? I mean,
that's what I just said.
I had this exact debate back in the day when I did my company Real Names. We tried to negotiate a deal with Yahoo to put basically the framing of it is, what is the value of outbound traffic? So to the receiver of the traffic. And obviously that's a fairly new question if you're the New York Times. It's an old question if you're Google or Yahoo. And Yahoo always wanted to keep the traffic internal, so they would never do a deal where they made it possible to earn revenue from outbound traffic from Yahoo to anyone in the directory. So we never did a deal with Yahoo. Google, on the other hand, immediately did a deal with me. They made Real Names I'm Feeling Lucky, and we owned the keywords at the top of search and got paid for outbound traffic because the receiver was only too happy to pay for traffic, which is known these days as cost per click. So at the very root of the internet's business model is cost per click. And the newspapers are basically saying they don't value an inbound traffic. They want to charge the sender of the traffic. It's kind of nuts.
Well, they got to charge somebody because there is a cost associated with gathering the news and publishing it.
And
Yeah, but they
Google has
can't.
already obviously made the decision to pay.
It's like charging your best friend. It's like if you run a barber shop and some guy gets people to come and cut hair, every time someone comes in, you charge him for sending them. it's nuts.
But because it's an advertising supported model, it's not just two parties. I mean, Facebook's product is advertising, and they create a stream that attracts attention, and which also delivers to them a lot of demographic and personal information to help them focus their ads. So it depends on people posting baby pictures, recipes, and links to news sources, and Facebook charges advertisers to insert ads in that stream.
Same as BuzzFeed.
So in the
BuzzFeed.
YouTube model, though, let's take a look, for example, at the YouTube model and how it deals with video content created by copywritten third parties and audio content created by copywritten third parties. YouTube will often simply just block it because the owner of the copyright has put out some kind of a blanket algorithm that says if this video from Blade Runner shows up on YouTube, stop, it doesn't go out. Now, in order to allow it to go out, the person that puts it on there would have to pay a fee to Warner Brothers or Universal or whoever it was.
Actually, it's a little more complicated than that, Frank. YouTube has done deals with the major publishers. And,
well, they've done the deal with the
studios.
music publishers for sure.
And
know that.
what happens is YouTube gets revenue through advertising, and if you have a certain amount of traffic on your YouTube channel, you get to share that revenue. The copyright owner can put up a claim which diverts the revenue from the person who posted the copyrighted content directly to the owner of the copyrighted content. So what YouTube does is demonetize that video for the poster, but it's still monetized for the copyright owner.
Well, interestingly enough, though, I've had, for example, things taken down off of my YouTube feed, and I'm not monetizing my YouTube channel.
Well, yes, it's a question of the deal that YouTube has made with the publisher. So the publisher can block it, but doesn't always block it. In fact, the publisher frequently is happy to get the traffic.
I think you also have to distinguish between a link and republishing the content. They're not the same thing. YouTube, if it republishes content, obviously can't do that. There's copyright and so on. And neither can Facebook republish the whole of the New York Times. But a link to the New York Times is not the same as republishing it.
Okay. So I linked to a clip from Blade Runner.
And Blade Runner gets the traffic on its legit site.
Okay. Well, so it seems to me like in Australia, both parties are creating a situation that seems like it's way more complicated than it needs to be. Well,
I think this is a temporary status. This is not going to be a permanent status. You know, it's like when a television channel wants to raise its license fee to a cable operator or a satellite operator, and the satellite operator balks and drops the channel. Then the person whose channel it is campaigns to their viewers and says, "Hey, get us back on," and it's part of a negotiation. So
I remember
it's going to work out.
You know, there was a
time.
time.
Decide.
Michael, there was a time when the local stations received all of the network's content for free. And bartered percentages of that content's value in their local market between the network, which is the fee the network got, and themselves, which was in the case of most of the network stuff, they didn't make as much on it as they might have made on local news, which was 100% of theirs, the money that they did not have to share with the network. I remember the day that Jeff Zucker said at one of the upfronts, we're going to charge the channels to use our stuff. And man, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And eventually that became the model. So I get your point that it's probably not going to last for a long time. I wonder what it's going to mean immediately in the United States or in the UK or somewhere other than Australia. Or are these places just going to sit and watch and see what happens there? What do you think?
I don't think the governments outside of Australia are going to copy what Australia has done. I think Denis's instinct that the government shouldn't put itself in the middle of this is probably widely accepted in most countries. And what I think is at the bottom of it is a lack of understanding that the currency of the internet is links. And that you as the owner of content want as many links as you can possibly get pointing back to your site. The more links you've got out there, the more money you'll make from your business model. So anyone who sends you traffic, unless you're really bad at monetizing your traffic, is your friend.
Well, but search engine
optimization,
but search engine optimization is in many cases based on keywords that are things that will drive you to a link that will then drive you to content that you then can share.
Well, that gets to the genuine brilliance of Larry and Sergey. What Google has built is an index of links, not content, links. And it's put keywords around those links to tell you what they're about, and it's let you find them. And when you find them, you click on them, you don't go to Google, you go to wherever the link points. And they then figured out a way, it took them a few years. I invented it basically, which is pay-per-click. Back with real names and being in Google, we were getting paid before Larry and Sergey were getting paid for clicks. And they
what went wrong there?
What went wrong is a side road to do with foolishly befriending Microsoft, but we won't go there because I'll get angry.
No, well, you did go there.
I'll talk for a long time, so you don't want that.
We got plenty of time, man. Go ahead.
I made a foolish mistake of partnering with Bill and Steve instead of Larry and Sergey, and that bit me in the ass 4 years later.
Okay.
Go to the Wall Street Journal.
Frank, to your point about who pays in television, that has shifted. It shifted in cable. When Fox launched, they had to pay the carriers for carriage.
Yeah.
Now the carriers have to pay them for carriage. So you know, it's a question of whether you're hungry for audience or whether you have the audience. Once you have the audience, you can flex a little more muscle in terms of negotiation with carriers.
Well, look at and Dennis, you can perhaps comment on this. Look at the surge at the New York Times in terms of subscriptions.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's enormous. They have some, I believe that they crossed over to where advertising revenue is less than subscription revenue.
I kind of think I heard that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's new. I think that just happened.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty crazy.
Where's your clicks here, man? I mean, this is not about clicks. It's about something that is.
I always resist saying something is not about clicks.
But their content, it's their content, isn't it?
It's a more complex system. You get clicks and you get a certain amount of free content, and then you hit the paywall because it's a freemium service. So the clicks are valuable. The inbound links are valuable, but at some point, the Times says, you want to see more of our stuff? You're going to send us a few shekels.
So the clicks are just bait.
Even before that, it's your market. It's the Times marketing program to a degree. The question is, what is that marketing program costing? I mean, you could say nothing, because it's just clicks and the marginal cost of adding a user is nugatory. Or you could say, yeah, but we're giving all this stuff away.
So the way they do it is they have two metrics: earned clicks and paid clicks. Earned clicks are where your content links lead to an inbound audience that converts in some degree into subscribers, and that isn't free, but they don't pay for the links. They pay marketing people and others to get the links out there. And so that kind of acknowledges the value of a link in a way. The fact that they earned media is really big. The second is paid media, where they go to Google and they buy an ad campaign, or Facebook or wherever. And mostly you would prefer earned media as opposed to paid media. And so what the Australian people are doing is they're closing down their earned media by forcing it to pay. So they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, and then the New York Times owns the media, so that's the third leg of the tripod, and using that owned media as bait to get you to hit its clicks on the other side of the firewall.
Yeah, Brett's
marketing.
Brett's show. I'd love to know what you think, Brett. His show. When I'm on LinkedIn, I see links to his show, and that's because he does a good job of earned media, and I see them on Twitter as well. There's nothing bad. If he suddenly said to Twitter, "You can't have my links unless you pay me," he'd be killing his audience. I mean,
all 10 of them that are out there, they'd probably be highly upset. So I don't know. This is a fascinating discussion. I'm really interested here. I'm glad I'm here.
But would you pay for
it? No, not at all. But no, it's really interesting. Jeez, it's like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go with this? If this first move is made and the government is able to do this, where does it stop? Where does it end? Where does the power?
Well, as
usurp go? I don't know.
As Michael said, eventually somebody, it's a game of chicken, and somebody says, "Okay."
Which is what Google's just done, I think. I don't fully understand it. I don't know if anyone's read properly, deeply what Google's agreed to, but
it's very. I haven't. I've read a lot about it, and I'm still scratching my head. That's why I brought it up, because fundamentally, that's why I said who's the problem here. I get the point that Dennis's point that, geez, I hate Facebook. I get that, but I also don't get what the government's position is. It just, that's why that all messed with my head. And then to hear that Google acquiesced, or just said, "Nah, we'll just go ahead and pay."
Maybe it's a false flag. Maybe it's just a form of harassment.
There was a story this week about a lot of companies who have cut back on their marketing budgets that are seeing increases in engagement with their brands. Primarily,
I know one. I can't say who it is, but I know one who, when all this started with the pandemic, they slashed their Google campaign ad spend to 0, and it hasn't impacted them a bit. It actually, they took some of that money. They saved a lot of that money, just for a rainy day, but they took some of it and did different things. And they actually have seen a positive effect from going from putting all this money over for Google AdWords and all that to other things, and spending less money on those other things, and seeing a bigger return on investment.
I think, Michael, you'll probably agree that happens a lot, though. A marketer determines that it's sort of done with a medium, and then pulls its money out of that medium and moves it over to another medium. And but often as it's kind of the dirty little secret of marketing, and that is, does it actually work?
Well, that's the old John Wanamaker line. I waste half the money I spend on advertising, but I can't find out which half.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was the genius about the Google ad auctions was that you paid for a click. You knew what you were paying for. You got an inquiry if you paid for it, and you only got charged if you got the inquiry. That didn't happen in the old days of advertising. You buy a page in a newspaper,
it still doesn't.
30 seconds on a TV network. You don't know what you get for it.
How do you know whether somebody is bought your product because they saw a billboard in Times Square?
Exactly.
That probably cost you more than half of that Super Bowl ad.
But the issue is with Google advertising based on inquiries, you have to be interested in the category, you have to be interested in the brand, and so your marketers think they need to invest in developing that, in doing brand advertising and doing broader advertising than simply paying for click. That's why marketing is tough, because it's a mix. You have to know what to invest in, and there's no clear way. There is earned media, there's paid media, there is different media, there is direct inquiry, direct mail, email newsletters. I mean, to be handed a marketing budget is to be handed a bunch of problems to solve. What is the most efficient way to spend that money to get the most revenue for your product or your brand?
When Turner started the original Turner network, most of the ads on the Turner network were things like the Zamfir magic flute, and you would dial an 800 number and you would pay for that product, and a percentage of that payment went to Turner. So there was and that still lives today with a lot of that. I mean, Ron Popeil made his fortune advertising that way.
Yeah, the infomercial model of pay per inquiry. Absolutely. I mean, there are so many models out there for trying to get attention and get engagement with an audience that'll eventually send you a credit card number.
Can I just make a observation? I'm so glad that we had Steve turn on the TV, because for a minute there I thought it was frozen because he hasn't moved in about 5 minutes. But I do see things moving in the TV, so I'm just glad that we had him turn the TV.
So what is this, pay for Twitch model? I mean, what are we talking about here? Seriously, what are we talking about here?
I think we're kind of done talking about it, if you ask me. I mean, it just seems to me like we got to the top of the mountain, then all of a sudden went over the other side. So we should move on to another thing.
Okay, so what would that be?
Bitcoin is at $55,000.
Oh my wife and I were talking about how much your 2 Bitcoin are worth now.
More than last week.
Oh my gosh.
Scott Galway projected 50K price for Bitcoin when it was at 19, and he has this week projected 100K.
And I did the same in my newsletter editorial. I think it's there's a great Financial Times story saying, is Bitcoin's rise America's decline? And I took that as my theme this week, at least the question. And it's really about the relationship between fiat currencies as stores of value, given government's ability to print notes and therefore undermine the value of each note, versus Bitcoin, which it is claimed in the Financial Times article as a store of value doesn't suffer from the same problem. And more people are kind of deciding to use Bitcoin as if it was gold, as a place to store value.
Wow.
So that is so then that leads to the question, what is the value of an asset, and what causes it to have value? And the ultimate answer is humans believe in it. That's the only cause of value being real, is that humans believe in it. Whether it's gold or notes or Bitcoin, it really doesn't matter. It's about trust and belief.
Well, see, to me,
Agreed.
with Bitcoin, I think there was a lot of general mistrust by the uninformed public. And I think that general mistrust, look, there were a lot of people that were saying the only people who are using Bitcoins are the criminals so that they can hide their money. I get that.
Has
But
that
now
changed
there's-
much yet, though?
Well,
I mean, it's
but
not
the
like it's
point-
being used as a currency for people to actually,
Well-
trade in, but people are
Yeah,
speculating for the most part.
except when a big company like a Tesla.
Well, Tesla came out,
you know,
yeah.
Well, that-
You know,
I think
or
that was a
there was-
threshold moment to
Yeah.
redefine what Bitcoin is in a lot of people's head. If when you
I
have a
think-
large corporation that says this is where we're putting our treasury, we're going to
And
put
they're
it
not
over
the only
here in
ones.
this asset, that changes it from a bunch of
How many
geeks and
people are buying
nerds and early
Teslas, though?
adopters.
How many people
criminals.
are actually buying Teslas to begin with, let alone, I'll take my one Bitcoin now and buy a Tesla. I think it's a step in the direction, but I was always wondering if a Walmart or Amazon or somebody like that, where, regular average people shop, and they said, well, we're going to start taking Bitcoin. That, to me, that would signal, okay, it's now it's time for it to hit the mainstream, but Tesla.
But the big issue is, why would you want to? I did it more than a year ago. I bought a Subaru, and I decided to sell a Bitcoin to buy a Subaru.
You could have gotten a Tesla this year if you had just held on, man.
Well, that's my point. The Subaru was $42,000. I think the Bitcoin at that time was worth 20. So I sold 2 Bitcoins, and I've now, looking at the price of Bitcoin, paid basically $110,000 for a $42,000 Subaru.
Listen, you're not the only one that sold Bitcoin when it was much lower, and I'm kicking myself for even doing that. I had actually said to my wife last night, I said, I never told you about the Bitcoin that I bought.
Oh.
Anyway, I opened up my Coinbase account and I showed her, and she was pleased. And that's good, but it was the next thing that she said, which was, but what are you going to do with that? You're not a drug dealer.
Wow.
Well, that's fundamentally changed now. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a reasonably good example. I don't actually own Bitcoin anymore, but in my E-Trade account, I bought the stock GBTC. GBTC is $57 a share today, and so 1,000 of them is equal to 1 Bitcoin roughly. So there's a small premium that you pay above the Bitcoin price,
Right.
but it's a share, and you can buy and sell it, and it's treated by the IRS as the same way all other shares are treated. It's a fairly decent way to own it.
Can you use your Bitcoin? I'm just asking this because I don't know this. Can you use your Bitcoin to purchase shares on your E-Trade account?
You can, if you get a big, pretty much every exchange now, like Coinbase is a good example. You can get a Visa card, and you can transfer money using your Visa card in actual dollars. And what they do on the back end is they sell your crypto for dollars, but you're spending dollars.
But you wouldn't go to your wallet and take the code from the wallet and apply it to directly to an E-Trade account.
Not on E-Trade, but you can do that with Robinhood. You can buy Bitcoin directly on Robinhood.
Which I can't get here in the UK, but I can do E-Trade here in the UK.
Well, in the UK, you would use Toro, eToro, or
Right.
Revolut. Both eToro and
Well, I have Revolut. I have a Revolut
The
account,
Revolut
so-
lets you buy Bitcoin right there in the wallet, and back and forth, sell it.
And it's also a credit card, so you can.
And it's also a credit card, so you can
Right.
spend it. So it's
Cool.
just another store of value now. It's becoming, no one believes any longer you're going to spend Bitcoin at a point of sale. You're going to spend dollars or pounds. But
Right.
you can be drawing on Bitcoin as the source of those dollars and pounds.
Which is what you do with a bank account.
Yeah. So it's a savings account. And by the way, these DeFi accounts, DEFI for those listening, there's lots of them. One is called BlockFi. You can now get 16 to 17% interest if you agree not to spend your cryptocurrency. If you put your money into stablecoin dollars, USDC, they will pay you 16 to 17% a year interest just for keeping it there. Which,
Is it FTC?
compared to
Is
a
it
bank, you know, where you're getting under 1%,
is it insured?
it's insured, yeah. And that's because they're making a delta. They basically if you place Bitcoin in BlockFi, you get your percent. It's lower for Bitcoin than it is for USDC, but you get your 7 or 8%, whatever they pay. And then you don't spend the Bitcoin. The minute you spend it, they don't pay you interest on it anymore. But they leverage it. They make loans to other people at higher interest rates, and you're basically getting paid a percent of what they're making. So there's a balanced market with revenues and costs, like any asset exchange in a way. So
This is a very informative program, Brent, by the way. I have to say.
I'm riveted.
I am too. I'm riveted.
Okay, next topic. Dennis, how are those Democrats doing?
Could you be less specific?
Yeah, how are those Republicans doing?
I don't know. I just read the papers and just watch. Hey, if I could just make one comment about cryptocurrency, or actually two comments. Number one, the US dollar is not a fiat currency. It is based on the full faith and credit of the American people. And therefore, that's another form of gold as far as I'm concerned. Secondly, if your Bitcoin was worth 20 grand last year and it's worth 50 or 100, whatever it is this year, that indicates it is not a store of value. You haven't gotten burned by it, but a store of value maintains its value. It doesn't fluctuate like that.
Well, are there any stores of value that don't fluctuate? Because as I think Keith said, the value of anything is what people imagine it is. It's what people ascribe to it. Why is a house worth $200,000 one year and $500,000 another year and $1 million another year? What has changed about the house? If anything, the house has deteriorated, and yet its price has gone up.
The value of Bitcoin is the mirror opposite of what a Reichmark was in the 1930s. I would agree that's not a store of value. The house is a store of value for sure, because it's not on the market. You don't know what it's really worth until you put it on the market and you test the market. And as an asset, yeah, you expect it to go up, but a dollar saved is not much of an asset. You get less than the inflation interest rate. A dollar is made to be a medium of exchange, and you've just demonstrated that Bitcoin is too valuable to use as a medium of exchange unless you've got an intermediary.
Well, but for the most part, Bitcoin is just right now is still ruled by the speculators. They don't buy. When you buy a house, you buy a house. One of the reasons you buy a house is you hope that it appreciates and that you can sell it because you want to buy a bigger house or something. But you live in a house too. There's an actual utility to the house beyond the speculation of hoping it goes up. Bitcoin right now is not only in the early days, it was only about, speculators trying to get into the gold rush. Now it's starting to, mature and starting to make its move to the main street, but it's still run by the speculators. And to me, that's the biggest difference between what's going on with Bitcoin and what goes on when you buy a house and how the house market ebbs and flows.
That would be my point too.
I think whether it's a store of value is not, it's not a kind of a black and a white question. It's a store of value if you choose it to be, irrespective of the risk associated with using it. So Dennis, you're right that the risk of using Bitcoin as a store of value is that it's highly volatile. And
therefore, it is not a store of value. if there's that much.
Well, no, you see, that doesn't. If I say it is, it is. It doesn't matter what you say. It isn't for you, but it is for me.
No, it's not what you say. It's what the market says. That's why.
And the market has put $1 trillion into it in the last, period.
That's fine, but what goes up can also go down, and
that's true of gold.
And
oil.
You're in a position with Bitcoin where you're riding the upside right now, but there's just as likely to be a downside.
No, I'm agreeing with you, but that's about the risk of using it as a store of value, not about whether it is a store of value.
Well, yeah, but you can't even.
Oil isn't a store of value.
Yeah, I was going to say people actually use oil in addition to speculate on whether it goes up or down. So right now, Bitcoin is just speculation, and until people actually start really using it as a transaction, a piece of transactional, a market-driven transaction versus just a speculative, it's not the same as oil or homes. People actually use those things.
I would say if we really asked ourselves the question, what assets are used for speculation? It depends.
Like pure speculation. They don't have any other use right now. They're not being used as a transactional piece. Just speculation.
There's lots of assets like that, like commodity futures.
Right.
Yeah, but those commodities are actually things that are going to be used, and they're betting on the future use of it, or the shortages are not.
You can eat a pork belly. You can burn a barrel of oil. What can you do with a Bitcoin?
You can buy a Subaru.
Speculate it.
Buy a Subaru.
I mean, there are speculative instruments that
have utility,
some relation to real instruments, but commodity futures are not things. They are contracts about things, but they're not things.
Well, until they become things, they eventually become things.
And they show up on your doorstep if you bet wrong.
That's the interesting thing about the relationship between the real economy and money. It used to be, if you go back far enough, that there was no distinction. There was only a real economy. And then, banking emerged and insurance emerged and futures emerged and derivatives emerged. And now most money has nothing to do with the real economy. Something like 90% of all money is invested in things that have nothing to do with the short-term real economy. The short-term real economy is a tiny fraction of value. And so Bitcoin is just another one of those things. It's another thing where money can go for speculative or future value. I think speculation and future value are the same thing, and the value can go up or it can go down.
But is it not like the gold standard without the gold?
It's digital gold. If everything's becoming digitized, why not money? Why not gold?
Yeah, but you don't need Bitcoin to transact digitally, and most people don't. I mean, we're just talking about Tesla kind of saying, yeah, we're gonna start dealing, in Bitcoin, letting people buy in Bitcoin. That's Tesla. I mean, like I said, that's just one very small and very kind of insignificant in the big scheme of things. Like I said, if a Walmart or Amazon or somebody that actually deals with the masses and says, okay, yeah, we're going to start taking Bitcoin, then I think, Brent,
the question is, who comes after Tesla? If nobody comes after Tesla, you're right. But the question is Tesla opening a door that other corporations will go through? I've heard speculation that Twitter is going to make some investments in Bitcoin.
I say that what Keith said about the thing that has stuck with me about this whole conversation, though, is what Keith said about, for example, being able to utilize a company like Revolut to store the Bitcoin in a wallet and then transfer it to cash that I can then spend using the credit card, the Revolut credit card. That makes it clear to me that there is a real useful way to use Bitcoin. And the more it goes up, here's the question then, Keith. Could I take my higher value Bitcoin and dump it into my Revolut account as cash, and that's a profit for me?
You can do better than, yes, you can, but you can also do another thing, which is you can keep your Bitcoin in Bitcoin if you think it's going to go up, and you can borrow against it cash that you spend today without selling the Bitcoin. And when the Bitcoin goes up even more, you can pay back the loan. That's what DeFi is. That's what DeFi is. Now that only works if it keeps going up. If it doesn't, if it goes down, it's like a margin call in a stock account.
I was just thinking about that poor kid who killed himself.
Yeah, who thought he lost money on Robinhood.
Who thought he lost money, and then after his parents and everybody tried to get some answers to the question, turns out he didn't lose money, and that he actually
money.
didn't need.
And he killed himself?
Money. And he killed himself.
He did kill himself. He thought he was like hundreds
he thought
of
he had lost
dollars.
Yeah.
In the hole.
And he couldn't get a hold of anyone at, I think it was at Robinhood.
Yeah. Well, it was the middle of the night. It was the middle of the night, and Robinhood's systems were not real time, so it was showing him mid settlement that he owed a bunch of money. When the following day it settled and he made some money.
But it was too late.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's a sad story. It really is.
But anyway, the only interesting question here is the Financial Times question, which is why are so many people choosing with their wallets to decide that for them at least Bitcoin is a store of value?
Or are some of these people desperate? Like, I saw somewhere where as the pandemic went on and people are losing jobs and lottery tickets went up because people are purchasing lottery tickets hoping they hit it big. So it's almost like betting as opposed to investing a lot of ways for these people.
Kind of what investing is.
I think
there's a generational thing now. There are young people who are financially not in the same position that our generation was in terms of their earning ability, the assets they have, and they look at the economy that our generation has and says, "Hey, we're being cheated. We can't get into it. We have no way into that world," and some of them are attracted to very speculative assets as a way of moving into a position of greater financial purchase economy.
Yeah.
Sad. I'll tell you what's sad.
If you look at the tuition costs that we had to pay when we went to college and university versus what people have to pay today, and you realize you start out in life in a big hole. We didn't start our careers in big holes. They did. They do. Some of them are still in those holes, and they look at things like home purchases and car purchases and say, I don't see how we get there.
Yeah.
That makes GameStop and Bitcoin attractive to a whole new generation that just feels cut off.
My kids all have got Bitcoin in their Robinhood accounts, all three of them. Not much. It's just like, a couple $100, but they've all seen it go up. And now they're buying other stuff. The interesting thing is I bought Tesla stock about a year ago, and it's gone up even more than Bitcoin. And so if you think of what do you do with your savings as the question, putting a bit into Bitcoin, a bit into Tesla, a bit into the Chinese equivalents of Tesla. I've got some in the ticker symbol's AI, which is the new enterprise AI company that just did an IPO. I mean, picking future value that you think is likely to go up due to what's going on in the world, that's what anyone should do with their assets anyway. And like my wife's been in Apple, Netflix, and one other forever. She's never sold a single share. It's up higher than Bitcoin. Netflix and Apple are up by Bitcoin, and nobody says Apple and Netflix is a bad choice. But the only reason Bitcoin is a bad choice is it's not a business or a company. It's a protocol running on the internet for transferring value. It's a protocol. That's all it is. A secure protocol for transferring value. And if people use it, it'll go up. If they don't, it'll go down. It's as simple as that. Same as Apple, though. If people buy Apple, it'll go up. If they don't, it'll go down.
Yeah, but I think it's easier to see the value created by Apple because they sell products and services, where the only value that's created by Bitcoin is speculation and risk and greed. I'm not saying
Wow,
that's all
yeah,
bad.
yeah. It's funny. You sound like your position vis-a-vis Bitcoin is a lot like Dennis's position about Facebook.
I don't hate Bitcoin. I think it's almost like you could almost say that about me thinking the same way about Clubhouse as I do about Bitcoin. It's about the people behind it. It's about the greed that drives it, or it's about the craving of building a brand behind it. The technologies themselves, there's nothing wrong with it. It's what drives the people to get interested in it is where I
So
find
you're not doing you're not clubhousing.
I haven't. I won't say I will never do it, but I'm kind of turned off only because of the kind of people that continue to talk about it, not about the technology itself. I think there's actually some really good pieces to the technology. Just like I think there's some pretty good things to blockchain and Bitcoin. But what's driving, the kind of the interest in it is the thing that maybe drives me a little bit away from it.
I think the utility of it is intriguing to me. I'm actually thinking about starting a room for people from the U.S. living in the U.K. And it's interesting too because there is a page on Facebook. There's a Facebook group for people in the U.S. living in the U.K. And a lot of them are asking if there is a place to go in Clubhouse to actually talk about that.
Now you were thinking about that last week.
I didn't do it. I don't know why I haven't done it yet. It's funny. I keep, and it's really also very interesting is every time I get a notification on my phone about an interesting Clubhouse group, and I think I've gotten rid of it. Like I touch it, I think it's gone away. All of a sudden I'm hearing all these voices talking about some topic that I'm absolutely not interested in whatsoever. And so I have to go and leave the room silently. It's a thing that I'm just still not comfortable with. I've done it. I don't feel exactly the way you do, Brent, about it, but I keep trying to get comfortable with it. I go and listen to something that I find kind of interesting, or I bump into something accidentally. But I see Steve smiling up there. You must have a position on this.
He loves Clubhouse.
Do?
I have a topic.
I think Clubhouse is really interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm like you two guys. I don't know what the hell to do with it. But I think there's something there. To me, it's kind of like, the Bitcoin conversation always drives me back to, if you have a house, like we have a house, we're in California. So it has a certain value, allegedly. But if we sell it, then we don't have a house. So
you have to buy
we have to buy
another one. Hopefully you get more for the house you sold so that buying another one is easier.
So in other words, I have to hope that for the mistakes of others to be able to get back in a house. And
the same with your savings. If you spend your savings on something, that something is either a deduction from your savings and you value what you bought, or it's worth something that's going to appreciate and it might go up, like stocks and shares possibly. So I think all decisions about assets have all dimensions. Will it go up? Will it go down? Am I cashing this in for an experience, like going on vacation or something that is intangible value? It's the same set of decisions, whether it's Bitcoin, a house, or a stock, or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's why you diversify.
Yeah,
sure, but but to Steve's point, you need some place to live. You don't need a Bitcoin.
I've been tempted every now and then. I get tempted to sell my house and rent, and have the assets to put into things that might appreciate faster than a house would. And I have rented actually for about quite a few years here in Palo Alto we rented. But that's because it was too expensive to buy a house. And then the 2008 crash happened and suddenly we could buy a house. And now I've got a house which is appreciated, so I'm happy I did it. But renting isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, if it frees up assets to do other stuff with.
There are a lot of advantages to renting, but rental prices, like everything else, fluctuate.
Yeah.
Usually go up. So we'll give you 3 months free for a move-in. It's like a free trial on a streaming service. And then you're hooked, and we'll raise your price.
You're hooked. Well, at least with the streaming service, you can bag out of it in 3 months.
Yes.
And you will have gotten 3 months of some pretty good content. Hopefully it's a good streaming service. I have another topic I'd like to touch on. Do we have time for another topic, Steve?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm concerned about the entertainment industry. And because I posted a bunch of stories about that in the last couple of newsletters. I'm concerned about the entertainment industry and where it's going to go, and if it's ever going to come back the way it was, and if it does come back, how much different will it be, and who gets hurt the most? The vendors, the businesses that are ancillary to the vendors, the performers, the musicians. I keep getting these notifications. I mentioned it last week from my musician friends who are like more and more they seem to be getting destitute and depressed. It's pretty horrible thing. I mean, and they're not the only group, obviously, that's out there. But entertainment is such an important part of our culture, of human culture, and I'm concerned about it. Is anyone else not concerned about it, or do you have any opinions about that?
I think it should be true that this is the golden age of entertainment, in that the gap between producing something and delivering it to an audience is now shrunk to zero, and the ability to charge is now easy.
Well,
So-
I see that. I think you're right about that in terms of video entertainment that can be monetized, but in terms of live performances, large concerts, anything that requires a venue where a lot of people can go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's more what I'm talking about. Then, I mean, look, there's also the whole issue about whether, and I think Martin Scorsese just said it, is streaming killing the motion picture industry. He makes the point that without
the pandemic is killing the pandemic.
Is the pandemic, which created the position where streaming has made this huge move up. It's all tied in together.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, there's like 6 questions
Yes.
walled up in this. I think what streaming has done temporarily is that it's made a great supply available, and the consumer base is relatively static. So it's going to take a while for the consumer base to churn through the available supply. I mean, even look at me. I just watched Bosch. Was that the name of it? Bosch.
Bosh.
And so I've gotten through that now, but there's a whole lot of other things that I haven't gotten through. If you look at the curves for various industries after the .com crash and after the 2008 crash, it seems like it took a couple of years for things like travel, hotel, to get back to their pre-crash levels, but they did get back, and they grew from there. And I think you're probably going to see something like that happen in the entertainment industry, especially live venues.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's a distinction, I think, to be made between live venues and the cinema experience. The value of a real-time live performance, whether it is drama, music, or anything, is a little bit different from watching a movie with an audience. I think that, I have a great hunger to have a shared communal live audience experience. I'm not going to hesitate when it comes back. I'll be back. I'll be buying tickets.
Yeah.
So this week,
me.
Black Magic Design announced this new A10 Mini that me and Brett used.
I
And
saw
it has,
that.
the new one has 8 in camera inputs, 2 USB outputs, and 2 HDMI outputs. So
And
the
it
average,
connects to a refrigerator too, doesn't it?
no, it's little.
It brings you a beer.
It's little.
It's pretty
Anyway,
amazing. It really is.
But my point was going to be, any entertainer could now fit that in an envelope, take it to their gig, ask the audience to bring cameras, 8 cameras, and they can stream live whatever they're performing to those fans that can't make it to the venue. So it feels as if live entertainment is going to only get better and be streamed.
I don't know what better means. I mean, first of all, the fans are now going to want to be paid.
Ha! Then the government's going to jump in and say, now, wait a minute, if you're going to do this and you're going to link to it, then the government has to get paid.
Exactly.
The other point I'd make is that Frank, you've got friends that are struggling, and I appreciate that, and it's hard for them. It just occurred to me though that the supply of entertainment grows organically with the population. There's a whole bunch of new entertainment that is just coming out or isn't out yet. It'll be out in the next few years with different entertainers, and they will go through a maturation process in their markets, just like today's performers and entertainers have done. And to Keith's point, technology is going to make that easier and easier. So maybe the real question is, how do you keep making a living doing it?
Well, that's an
question, I
interesting
think.
point. It's not just a matter of how do you keep making a living doing it, but how do you continue to stay up to date and continue to be relevant in your endeavors. But it's almost like, oh, you know what? I'm a great guitar player, but I'm just too damned old to figure out this streaming thing. So it's time to hand over the baton to the younger generation that's going to go and do that. Or I'm a great guitar player and I'm a techno geek, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to make a new way to generate revenue and continue to be a performer. I mean,
I think the answer is all of the above.
yeah.
And more,
The mix is constantly changing.
Yes. But then that's no different than it ever has been,
Exactly.
regardless of, yeah.
Exactly. You know, you had shows in tents. We don't have so many shows in tents anymore. Now we have shows in buildings, and now we have shows in the clouds.
Boxes.
It changes all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't forget, there's a lot of venues that aren't going anywhere, and they need to be filled. And if you're a great guitar player and you're not a techno whiz, it doesn't really matter, because you're probably going to be able to live through the rest of your career in those venues that you're familiar with, that you have an audience that still likes to go to.
So those venues all have to be made into.
You guys know of Jake Shimabukuro? He's a virtuoso ukulele player.
Really?
Who became famous because he recorded, or somebody recorded him playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps in Central Park and put it up on YouTube. And it went viral. It's still there. It's an astonishing performance. And from that, he was able to build a concert career and a record career, a recording career. You know, now his world has changed, but it's an example of the synergies between new media, streaming media, and old media, personal appearances. It's part of promotion. It's part of how you realize these things. The mix is always going to be changing, but I think live performance isn't going anywhere. It's coming back.
So interestingly enough that you say that, because I mean, it makes me think about one of my friends in particular who was recently really bemoaning the fact that he can't ply his trade. The fact is, he can ply his trade. He just can't ply it the way he used to.
Right.
And it's
Well,
also,
let's be real about this. He can ply his trade, but can he make money at it? No.
yeah. This is a wonderful example of how audiences especially in entertainment, go for what's new, what's exciting, what hasn't been done before. It's very different from deciding you need a new doctor, and you're not going to go to the 28-year-old that just got out of his residency. You're going to look for somebody who's 45 and has killed a few people first, and hopefully he won't kill you. And so, right. So being an entertainer is sort of front end loaded, and being a physician, a doctor, a dentist, a plumber, a lot of that's back end loaded. You get better with age. You don't necessarily.
There is still the thing though, and I wonder if it's still as much a thing today as it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago, where everybody wanted their content, but they wanted it for free. So they pirated the cable signal, or they copied the DVDs and then shared them, or they made playlists on cassettes and gave them away. All of that stuff. I think that even in today's highly content digital world, there's a lot of that still going on, and that can only hurt the performers.
Yeah, but you know what? That's
well, not only, actually. I shouldn't say only. It's more than just the performers.
That's part of the whole evolution of any market. I mean, if you go back far enough, go back to the 1980s, and the software market was just like that. People would trade floppy disks, and it was Bill Gates who got into the business and said, "No, you're gonna pay for it, because somebody's got to be on the phone when you call up for support, and we can't pay that person unless you pay us."
Well, and that's when digital rights management became a thing.
Yeah. It took decades. I mean, some countries are still thought of as one diskette distributions, but by and large, the software industry's got things nailed down now, and a lot of entertainment is like that too.
One other factor that I think we never should lose sight of when you talk about entertainment, it's a star system. There are hit makers and people who make fortunes at it, and there are people who don't. It's always been that way, and there's always been a very daunting ratio of people who actually make a living or make a spectacular living to those who struggle and do it for the love or the hope of maybe breaking in.
For the art.
Keith found your ukulele player there on.
Okay.
Well, look, it is true. I mean, let's just have a hit.
Once around the horn, starting with Brent. Thoughts?
I've had a few.
How's that going for you?
But then again, too few to mention.
There it is.
Is there an echo?
My thought right now is it's probably a good time to wrap things up. I think we've had we're like 3 in a row. And look, we're going on an hour and a half almost. And I've stayed with this the whole way. I think that's a serious win.
That's a store of value for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Keith?
I love the fact that the key performance indicator of the gang is Brent's ability to maintain his attention.
Where there's Brent, there's hope.
Wow, that has never been said ever before. So
well, it'll be said again.
Yeah,
okay. Frank,
it's going to be a statement that's going to be hung right over my locker. When I'm gonna pound it for good luck every time I leave for the field. That's it.
When we do the OKRs for the gang for 2021, just let's remember that's the KPI we're all aiming for.
And OKR
is this thing that companies do to tell everyone what their job is. Brent knows all about it. He covers it as an analyst, I'm sure.
Well, I know all about it too, but maybe people listening don't.
And who would that be?
Well, according to this, there's at least 2 people watching.
Right. Doubled our audience. That's great.
Denis?
Not for today, and I don't know about when, but one of the things that I'm keeping my eye on is the slow dissolution of the Republican Party.
Wow.
It's really something to watch, especially, if you look at what Ted Cruz did this week, if you look at the house of cards that was the Texas grid falling down, you look at a lot of things, and the verities, the truisms of the last 30 or 40 years that the Republicans have been peddling aren't holding up anymore. And it's fascinating to watch, I think.
Michael?
I was having the same thought that Dennis was. I was wondering when Ted Cruz would make an appearance in this performance in this gang. There is so much about Ted Cruz that is emblematic and delicious. I'm
Wow.
just enjoying it. I'm
Ted
enjoying
Cruz
it
and
almost-
delicious. Never thought I'd hear that in the same sentence. So,
Well,
Michael,
it's delicious in the Schadenfreude category.
Well,
He is so perfect. He not only has a poodle, he named his poodle Snowflake, and he left his poodle at home in a home that was too cold for him to occupy.
wow.
Oh,
God.
and yet
poor Snow.
Beto O'Rourke couldn't beat him.
No, he couldn't that time.
And
But
he
you
wouldn't beat
realize
him
that
if
AOC
they run
has
again.
raised $1 million
That's right.
for Texas since the storm.
Like
AOC
being a
has
Chicago
raised
Cubs
$1
fan.
million for relief for Texas.
Who Ocasio-Cortez?
Yes.
Yeah, great story.
But the punchline of that is, and he still would beat Beto or AOC or whoever the Democrat is in the next time he runs. All this doesn't matter for that.
Well, I'm interested to see
I don't care.
how this affects Texas politics, whether there will be any kind of realignment.
Exactly. I think the GOP is having a Wizard of Oz moment, a moment when Toto goes behind the curtain.
Yeah.
What does this mean for somebody like Mitch McConnell, who with his speech after the vote?
That was
that
that
did
put on
nothing.
a great front.
So this is the show that could have been.
it could
And-
still be, but it
No,
could be next
And
Friday.
if it's
That was
still of
last
any
week.
interest next week, we can have it next week.
Oh, there'll still be interest. You bet.
But maybe Bitcoin will go to 700 next week.
So, you mean drop?
Can
to
I take back
700?
my lack of having a thought? Because I do have a thought.
Thank
We
you.
talked about Ted Cruz being delicious and Bitcoin and all that. And it totally covered over, this whole trip to Mars thing. I mean, how did this happen? How did we not talk about that at all?
Well, because it takes 30 minutes to find out what happened.
Yeah, because once you say something, you won't hear it for a long time. I did see a picture online just a few minutes ago of them, the first color photo from the new Mars rover with a big McDonald's sign in the way over there in the corner.
Yeah, I
It's
just
pretty
got
amazing.
the postcards from Mars notification from CNN. Yeah.
All right. So Keith, I'll give you another shot at this. Anything else?
I'm immune from COVID is probably my most important thought right now. Having been diagnosed, my body's fought it, won, and I am now Superman against the virus.
Do you have taste? Can you taste your food? Can you smell?
I can. I never lost my taste or my smell, but apparently only like 15% of cases that happens.
That would be just horrible.
I can
Well-
definitely still smell and taste.
I just hope you get better quick, man.
Me too.
And completely.
Yep.
Yeah, no lingering.
I do think the Mars thing is amazing. It's an uplifting story of what's possible.
I put a link into the chat of a video that goes into some detail of the instruments on the Mars rover and the engineering behind it. It's astonishing. The more you dig into it, the more astonishing it is.
The fact that they hit the planet is
Astonishing is that a government agency made it.
Pardon?
Yes. It flies in the face of conspiracy theories.
Yes, a government agency made it,
Yes.
And it worked.
and it worked.
Just another reason why we need the Space Force, people.
Oh,
I'd like to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to thank,
The Pelosi clap.
ooh.
it's like this. And then,
Yeah, it's
All right. I want to thank Denis Pombriant. Thank you, sir.
That would be me. Over and out.
I'd like to thank somebody just posted something on the Gillmor Gang back channel from YouTube. Who would that be?
That would be me. That's a video about the Mars rover, the Perseverance.
Yeah, he just explained that like literally a minute ago, but
Yeah, you're not listening to your own show.
What else is new? I'd like to thank Michael Markman. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Watch the video.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank Keith Teare.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Hope to continue thanking you as time goes on. And Frank Radice, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, gang.
And I'll leave it to Brent Leary to sign us off from his position outside the 1 hour mark. Thanks, Brent.
peace.
Bye, Frank.
Ah,
Thanks to everybody who showed up,
cats.
especially
Cats.
those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Kitty tails.
Bye.
Tales from the cats.
All right, we're out. We're going to stop the stream. Thank you, everybody, for watching.